Poor village girl was forced to marry a poor man unaware he is a secret billionaire. In the remote village of Okuta, life moved slowly. The sun painted the sky golden every morning, and the dusty winds whispered secrets through the trees. Adesawa had lived in that village all her life. She had known nothing but hardship, simplicity, and a yearning for more. With skin as rich as bronze and eyes that held quiet wisdom, Adesawa was admired for her beauty but pitied for her situation. Her father, once a respected farmer, had lost everything after years of drought. His farmland had turned to cracked earth, and their once proud household had sunk into poverty. Her mother, a soft-spoken woman who once sewed dresses for village brides, now sat by the window each day, mending old clothes and coughing into her scarf. Adesawa, 21 and full of buried dreams, had long stopped hoping for miracles. She helped her mother with sewing, fetched water from the stream, and cooked for the family with whatever little they had. Then one hot evening, her father summoned her. "Adesawa," he said, his voice heavy, "you're getting married." She blinked. "To who?" "To Kano. Baba Ibeji's son." Adesawa felt her throat tighten. Kano was a familiar figure, quiet, reserved, always in worn-out clothes. He worked as a mechanic's assistant in the village and lived in a small, dilapidated house with his aunt. He wasn't cruel or rude, in fact, he was polite and hard-working, but she had never thought of him as husband material. Not because he was poor, but because she had always hoped for a love story, not a transaction. "Why, Papa?" Her father couldn't meet her eyes. "We owe Baba Ibeji a lot. Too much. This marriage will clear our debt." Her mother said nothing, just kept stitching silently, her face hidden in shadows. Adesawa didn't scream. She didn't fight. She had learned long ago that in some battles, silence was the only weapon. The wedding was quiet, small, with only a few neighbors watching from a distance. Kano looked clean, if simple. He held her hand gently during the vows. She whispered her responses, feeling like she was floating outside herself. That night, they walked to his house, now their house, and he said softly, "Thank you for doing this. I'll never hurt you. I promise." She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. What Adesawa didn't know was that her new husband was not who he appeared to be. Kano, or rather, Ada Kano Aladipo, was the only son of Chief Ayatunde Aladipo, one of the wealthiest oil tycoons in Nigeria. Years ago, Chief Aladipo had made a decision. He sent his son away to live humbly in rural Nigeria, stripped of his fortune, his staff, and his name. The old man believed that wealth without wisdom was a curse. He wanted his son to understand life from the bottom up before inheriting billions. Kano accepted the challenge, disguised himself as an ordinary village mechanic, and cut off all public ties. What began as a test became a mission. Kano fell in love with the simplicity of rural life, the quiet dignity of poor people, and the opportunity to do good quietly. He invested secretly in rural schools, funded small businesses through anonymous donors, and quietly grew a portfolio under aliases. His wealth was growing even in hiding, but no one, not even the villagers, knew. Until now. Adesawa moved in with him, adjusting to her new life. She scrubbed floors, fetched water, washed his clothes, and cooked. He helped when he could. He never shouted. He never raised a hand. Slowly, she began to notice the little things, how his hands were always clean despite being a mechanic. How he read books at night. How his phone was old, but he spoke with a kind of grace that didn't match poverty. He treated her with quiet respect, bought her little gifts, and never pressured her. Weeks passed. Then months. Adesawa began to soften. One night, after she had fallen asleep, Kano stepped outside and made a call. "Prepare the Abuja estate," he said to someone on the other end. "I'll bring her soon." "Sir?" his assistant replied, startled. "Are you ready to reveal yourself?" "Not yet," Kano said. "But she deserves the world. And I intend to give it to her." The next day, the village buzzed with whispers. A sleek black SUV rolled into town, stopping outside Cunnell's humble house. From it stepped a tall man in a gray suit. His shoes gleamed. His eyes searched. "I'm looking for Ada Cunnell Oladipo," the man said. Adesawa stood at the door, confused. "There's no Ada Cunnell here." Cunnell stepped outside. "Cunnell," the man said. "We're ready. Your father wants you back." Adesawa's world tilted. "Father? What is going on?" Cunnell took her hand. "Let me explain." He told her everything, about his real name, his mission, his father, and the hidden fortune. She sat in stunned silence as Mr. Dapo, the suited man, nodded in confirmation. "You are married to one of the most powerful heirs in Africa," he said. "And we're here to take you both home." Adesawa didn't speak for hours. That night, she sat quietly, watching him pack a small bag. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted someone who could love me without money," he said. "You married me when I was a nobody. That makes you rare." She said nothing. But in her heart, something shifted. The next morning, they left the village. People stared, whispered, pointed. The same women who once laughed at her now watched with envy. They arrived in Abuja by evening. The estate was a sprawling mansion surrounded by high gates, flowering gardens, fountains, and guards. Maids welcomed them. Cooks prepared meals she couldn't pronounce. Her room had silk sheets and chandeliers. "This is overwhelming," she whispered. "It's yours now," Cunnell said. "But only if you want it." He gave her space. He gave her time. He introduced her slowly to the world of wealth, fashion, etiquette, diplomacy. He even built her a small studio where she could sew, design, and build something of her own. Weeks turned into months. Adesawa launched the Humble Pearl, a foundation for village girls with talent but no resources. She visited rural schools, sponsored scholarships, and trained women in tailoring and business. Slowly, the press began to notice. But the press also became cruel. "Gold digger wife," some headlines read. "Village girl traps billionaire," others whispered. Adesawa cried when she saw them. "I don't belong here," she told Cunnell. "You belong more than anyone," he replied. "You are the reason I became the man I was supposed to be."
At a gala one night, surrounded by Africa's elite, a reporter asked her, "Madam, what was it like to go from village girl to billionaire's wife?" She smiled and said, "It was never about the money. It was about learning to love someone before the world knew his name." The crowd applauded. Cunnell took her hand. In the years that followed, they became one of the most powerful couples in the country, not for their wealth, but for their impact. They funded orphanages, sponsored tech startups for women, and rebuilt their home village into a thriving township with roads, schools, and clinics. Adesawa remained grounded. She visited her parents often, now living in comfort. Her mother was healed. Her father laughed again. The girl who once cried in silence now stood tall, not just as a wife, but as a queen of her own empire. And Cunnell, the man the world once dismissed as poor, had finally found the one person who saw his soul before his surname. In the end, it was never about being poor or rich. It was about fate, and fate had chosen love,